This is your sign to get TSA pre if you live in the US. Pre-check, because that's the line.
Now entire airports are saying, you guys figure it out. Because people who are going to the airport for their flights are walking into a complete nightmare. Lines are so bad, it's not just inside of the airport you're having to wait in line, you're having to wait all the way out in the parking garage.
Yes! From the security checkpoint, baggage claim, hotels, public transport to the stadiums, long lines that seem never-ending appear every place. This is not the scene of a major holiday. It's not an event. What has caused a country with one of the largest tourism infrastructures in the world to fall into such an overloaded state? Has the American tourism industry truly revived, or is it just a temporary craze? Let's start the journey of exploration right now. If you look at the endless lines of people at the airport or the fully booked hotels, many would think the simple reason is that the World Cup is approaching. But that's just a tiny piece of the puzzle. What is happening in the US is actually the result of multiple waves of tourism converging at the same time, creating unprecedented pressure on the entire system. After years of being suppressed by the pandemic, the world has entered a phase that experts call revenge travel, a trend of making up for missed trips. Millions of people no longer want to postpone their travel plans. They want to go now, travel more, and experience more. Notably, global travel spending has recovered to pre-pandemic levels, while demand at many of America's famous destinations continues to surge. That wave is like a great tide coming in all at once, causing even the calm rivers to start rising. But what makes 2026 special is not the number of people traveling, but the way they travel. In the past, a trip usually had only one purpose: relaxation, business, or sightseeing. Now, many people combine everything into one. They fly to the US to watch a sports game, combine it with attending a concert of their favorite artist, visit Disneyland with their family, and then continue to Las Vegas or national parks before heading back. Business travelers take advantage of working remotely for a few extra days to turn their work trip into a vacation. One trip, but with 3, 4, or even 5 different goals. That is a major turnaround in global travel behavior. If you've ever tried to cram as many experiences as possible into a vacation out of fear of missing out, share in the comments to see if you're not the only one. What's even more interesting is that seemingly unrelated trends are inadvertently resonating with each other. Cruise tourism continues to recover strongly. Event tourism, from concerts and music festivals to major sports tournaments, attracts millions of visitors. Working remotely means many people are no longer limited by the office. Just bringing a laptop can extend their vacation by a few days. As a result, airports no longer witness the brief peak periods they used to. Instead, the peak season seems to stretch from month to month. That's why many cities are always crowded, even when it's not a major holiday. And this is the most thought-provoking thing. When millions of people share the same thought, go right now. Because who knows if next year it will be more expensive or more crowded. That very mentality makes everything even more crowded and more expensive. It's like a domino effect. Each individual's decision contributes to a massive wave that no one can truly control. If you find these analyses interesting, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on the less discussed perspectives on America and the global changes happening. But the increase in visitors is just the tip of the iceberg. The more important question is, what will happen when tens of millions of people simultaneously flood into a system that is already operating at near full capacity? In the next section, we will step into the place under the greatest pressure of this wave. Airports, where just a few missing staff or a delayed link can cause the entire aviation network to fall into a chain reaction. If I had to choose a place currently bearing the greatest pressure from the wave of tourism, it would not be hotels or stadiums, but airports. Just one small link encountering an issue can cause a chain reaction throughout the entire system. Imagine a highway with 20 lanes, but the toll booth only has 5 open gates. Cars don't disappear, the road doesn't narrow, but everything starts to jam up just because a bottleneck appears ahead. The American aviation industry is facing a similar situation. The issue is not a lack of planes, but rather that the service systems can no longer keep up with the increase in passenger numbers. From the TSA security screening area, baggage claim, ground staff, to the air traffic control team all have to operate at nearly full capacity every day. This explains why just a few missing staff members or an unexpected storm can disrupt thousands of flights. In recent years, U.S. aviation officials have repeatedly warned about the shortage of air traffic controllers in several key areas. Meanwhile, extreme weather is occurring more frequently, making flight schedules increasingly unpredictable. The point worth mentioning is that a delayed flight does not just cause one plane to arrive late. It can cause dozens of other flights to be delayed throughout the day, as the same aircraft and crew will continue to operate multiple subsequent journeys. That is the domino effect that passengers only see on the electronic board with the word delayed, but behind it is a whole chain of extremely complex operations. That pressure is not only happening in the US. Heathrow Airport in the UK once had to ask airlines to limit the number of tickets sold because it could only handle about 100,000 departing passengers each day. A seemingly paradoxical decision. The airport had to turn away some passengers to prevent the system from being overloaded, and in the US, names like Atlanta, Chicago O'Hare, JFK, or LAX continuously have to adjust their schedules during peak periods. At times, discussions about reducing the number of flights did not stem from a lack of demand, but because the flight schedules were created faster than the actual operational capacity of the infrastructure. This shows that the bottleneck is no longer in the sky, but right on the ground. And then there's the luggage. The unwitting main character of many trips. Many passengers joke that they get home before their suitcase, which is still touring the airport. It sounds funny, but recent statistics show that the number of complaints related to lost, delayed, or damaged luggage has significantly increased compared to previous years. That reflects the reality that when the entire system operates at its limits, even seemingly minor processes like baggage handling can easily become bottlenecks. If you've ever had to wait for your luggage for hours or witnessed your flight's departure time being constantly changed, please share your experience below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to follow analyses like this, because the next part will reveal an even more interesting paradox. Before travelers even step out of the airport, major cities in the US are already becoming overwhelmed in a completely different way. Leaving the airport doesn't mean you've escaped the crowds. In fact, that's just the beginning. When stepping into the famous tourist cities of America like New York, Las Vegas, Orlando, Miami, or San Francisco, many visitors feel as if the entire city is operating like a gigantique amusement park. Not because there are roller coasters or fairy tale castles every place, but because all services must operate continuously to serve a huge number of people from early morning until late at night. From hotels, restaurants, taxis, subways to ride-hailing apps, everything is being stretched like a guitar string. The noteworthy point is that the pressure does not only come from the number of tourists, but from the fact that they all need to use the same system almost at the same time. That's why sometimes you just want to call a car to the hotel, but the price has gone up by 1.5 times, or simply, there are no cars available to book. Interestingly, congestion today is no longer measured by how crowded the streets are. It is measured by waiting time. Waiting to check into the hotel, waiting for a table, waiting for the elevator, waiting for the subway, waiting for your turn to enter the attraction. Many experts call this the hidden cost of mass tourism. You can still buy a ticket, but you can't buy more time. Some recent surveys show that New York, Las Vegas, and San Francisco continue to be among the cities with the highest accommodation and experience costs in the United States, especially when adding hotel taxes and local surcharges. Jokingly, it feels like your wallet is losing weight faster than you after a day of walking around the city. But what is more thought-provoking is the ripple effect of this wave. When the number of customers increases significantly, the demand for all services also rises. The restaurant has to hire more staff. The hotel must turn over rooms faster. Uber and taxis operate continuously. Airbnb is fully booked. Even parking spaces in the city center have become rare commodities. Some people have humorously said that to book a dinner table in a famous area, sometimes you have to plan even earlier than booking a plane ticket. And if you want to find a nice parking spot on the weekend, sometimes it's even harder than hunting for tickets to a famous artist's concert. Behind those cheerful stories lies a reality. When all services are pushed to their limits, the quality of the experience can easily decline, even though the city continues to welcome more visitors. And this is the noteworthy turnaround. Many people believe that mass tourism will only benefit businesses. That's true, but not enough. When the hotel is always fully booked, the room rates increase. When the restaurant is always busy, the meal prices also increase. When the demand for rides exceeds the supply, the fares immediately skyrocket according to the flexible pricing mechanism. In other words, tourism not only makes the city more crowded, but also makes everything more expensive. That's why many travelers are starting to change their planning methods, choosing to stay further from the center or traveling during the off-peak season to save costs. If you've ever been surprised by a meal, an Uber ride, or a hotel night being much more expensive than expected, please share in the comments so everyone can know. And if you enjoy these analytical perspectives, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to support the channel. However, everything we just discussed is still just the surface consequences. What is even more interesting is that an event is approaching, which many people see as the biggest test for the entire system. The surprising thing is that the event did not create new problems, but rather made the existing weaknesses more apparent than ever. And that is the content of the next part. At this point, many people might think, so the main culprit is the World Cup? It sounds reasonable, but if you look more closely, the answer is not quite so. This is the most interesting twist of the story. The World Cup does not create new problems. It is just like a giant magnifying glass, amplifying all the weaknesses that have existed in the tourism and transportation system for many years. Imagine a bridge that is already congested during rush hour. When a few thousand more cars are added at the same time, the bridge doesn't naturally weaken, but every crack will become more apparent than ever. America is also in a similar situation. From airports, hotels, public transportation, to service staff, all have been under great pressure before the first ball of the tournament was kicked. The World Cup only increases that pressure to another level. The noteworthy point is that the World Cup does not take place in a vacuum. It appears right at the peak of the summer tourist season, with busy cruise operations, a vibrant music festival season, other sports events happening continuously, and a high volume of business travelers. In other words, instead of just adding one event, the system has to handle multiple waves at the same time. That is why many forecasts suggest that tens of millions of international and domestic travelers will move at the same time, creating unprecedented pressure on the infrastructure. A match lasts 90 minutes, but the crowds before and after the game can keep the entire transportation network busy for hours. Hearing that, one realizes that sometimes the hardest part of a football match is not finding a seat in the stadium, but rather finding an Uber after the match ends. Not only traffic, but other sectors also have to operate at a higher intensity. Hotels need more staff, but the labor market doesn't always respond immediately. Restaurants serve more customers, but the supply of ingredients and labor is still limited. Airports have to handle more flights, while weather or minor disruptions can occur at any time. Some visa, entry, and customs procedures are experiencing higher than normal traffic. The wow factor lies in the fact that no major incident is needed. Just a series of small glitches occurring simultaneously is enough to create a sense of chaos for thousands of travelers. That is why experts often emphasize that the biggest challenge is not the number of guests, but the coordination ability of the entire system. However, it is also necessary to view the issue from a more balanced perspective. It is precisely global-scale events like the World Cup that provide cities with the opportunity to upgrade infrastructure, improve operational processes, and test many new solutions. Like a final exam, the test does not weaken the students, but only shows which parts of their knowledge still need to be supplemented. With the American tourism industry as well, the World Cup is becoming a real test for airports, urban transportation, hotels, and public services. If you think a sporting event can change the way a country operates its tourism system, please leave your comments below. And if these analyses provide you with a new perspective, don't forget to like and subscribe to stay tuned with the channel for the next exciting topics. But the interesting thing is that after all that pressure, the ones who changed the fastest were not the airports or hotels, but the travelers themselves. They started choosing different destinations, traveling at different times, and even completely changing the way they plan their vacations. That will be a very noteworthy story in the next part. Interestingly, as famous cities become increasingly crowded, The first to change are the Americans. They no longer see squeezing into hot destinations as a measure of a successful vacation. Instead, a new question is increasingly appearing in travel forums. Where is still quiet enough for me to truly relax? Just a small change in the way questions are asked is enough to show that travel thinking is shifting. In the past, people often made lists of must-visit places, but now many people are starting to cross off the overly crowded places. That is quite an interesting paradox. The very allure of a destination can sometimes cause it to lose what travelers seek the most, a sense of relaxation. One of the rapidly growing trends is micro-vacation, or ultra-short vacations lasting only from 1 to 3 days. Instead of spending 2 weeks on a big trip, many people choose to take a weekend break in a city a few hours away by plane or a few hours drive from home. According to travel platforms, the average duration of many domestic trips in the US is now only about 3 days. This may sound short, but it reflects a notable change. Instead of waiting for a long vacation, people are breaking up their free time to travel multiple times a year. Surprisingly, many people even combine remote work with travel, having online meetings in the morning and then going hiking or exploring small towns in the afternoon. Perhaps the laptop is no longer just a work tool, but also like a passport that extends the vacation by a few days. Not only are they shortening the duration, but Americans are also starting to change locations. Instead of crowding in Manhattan, they can choose a small town in the Northeast. Instead of queuing at famous beaches, they drive to national parks or mid-sized cities, where costs are more affordable and the space is more spacious. The concept of undertourism, seeking out lesser-known destinations instead of familiar icons, is being mentioned more and more. This does not mean that New York or Las Vegas have lost their charm. Rather, more and more people are realizing that sometimes a quiet cafe in a small town can leave more memories than a photo taken while jostling behind hundreds of others. Another notable change is the timing of departures. If summer used to be the #1 choice, now many families actively travel in spring or autumn to avoid crowds and save costs. Experts call this the shoulder season trend, meaning traveling during the transitional seasons. The atmosphere is still beautiful, the weather is pleasant, but hotels, plane tickets, and attractions are usually much more affordable. That's quite an interesting turnaround. Previously, everyone wanted to travel during the peak season, but now many people intentionally avoid that exact time. Even some people jokingly say that the secret to a comfortable vacation is not earning more money, but changing the vacation schedule. After all, what has changed is not just the itinerary, but the way people define a memorable trip. They no longer try to check in at as many places as possible, but instead start prioritizing experiences, comfort, and quality time for themselves or their families. If it were you, would you choose a famous city but crowded with people, or a lesser-known town that is peaceful enough to enjoy your vacation? Please share your thoughts in the comments section. And if you see these trends also appearing where you live, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to follow the next interesting stories. But after all those changes, there is still a big unanswered question. Are the scenes of overcrowded airports, fully booked hotels, and streets packed with people just temporary phenomena? Or are they the price to pay when a country becomes a top destination in the world? That will be the final piece, and also the most thought-provoking perspective of the entire story. After all that we have just seen, perhaps it is time to ask another question. Is this really chaos? Or just the price that any successful destination has to pay? Because if we only look at the long lines at the airport, the fully booked hotels, or the always crowded streets, it's easy to conclude that everything is heading in a negative direction. But if we take a few steps back to look at the big picture, the scene adds many more colors. For businesses, this is a vibrant period. Hotels have more guests, restaurants have increased revenue, airlines have more passengers, the service industry is creating more jobs, and many localities are benefiting from tourism revenue. The surprising thing is that the very crowds that many consider to be overwhelming are actually a sign that America's allure remains very strong on the world tourism map. Not many countries can continuously attract tens of millions of visitors amidst the global economic turmoil. But on the other side of the picture, the feelings of the local people are different. When a neighborhood becomes increasingly popular, rental prices can rise accordingly. When the amount of traffic increases, travel times also lengthen, The once quiet coffee shops now have to line up, and the familiar roads suddenly become crowded on weekends. This does not mean that tourism is a bad thing, but rather that all development comes with very difficult balances. Like a backpack, if too many items are packed in, even if they are all necessary, the person carrying it will still feel the weight in the end. The city is the same. The more tourists there are, the greater the pressure on infrastructure, traffic, and public services if the investment pace does not keep up. For the tourists themselves, the experience is also changing. Many people come to America with an image of wide boulevards, vibrant amusement parks, and free-spirited road trips. They still duddy in all of that, but sometimes they have to trade it for more waiting time, more expenses, and a more meticulously planned itinerary. Some people jokingly say that in the past, all you needed was to pack a suitcase, but now you have to prepare a budget spreadsheet and a few backup plans. It sounds funny, but it also reflects the reality that modern travel is no longer just about grabbing a backpack and going. What is noteworthy is that tourists' expectations are changing just as rapidly as the tourism industry itself. They not only want to go to beautiful places, but also to places that operate smoothly. Perhaps that's why, instead of calling it a crisis, it would be more accurate to see it as a large-scale test. A country can build more hotels, can open more flight routes. It is possible to organize more international events. But the hardest part is making all those links work in harmony together. And that is the real challenge for the world's top destinations in the coming years. If you have the opportunity to travel to the US during this period, would you accept the crowds to immerse yourself in the vibrant atmosphere? Or would you be ready to switch to a quieter destination? Please share your perspective in the comments section. If you enjoy such multifaceted analyses, don't forget to hit like and subscribe to motivate the channel to bring more quality content. Finally, perhaps the most memorable part of today's story is not the overcrowded airports or the fully booked stadiums. What is more memorable is a very interesting paradox. The more people want to go to a place, the more that place has to strive to still provide a worthwhile experience. And that is also the puzzle that America, as well as many other famous destinations around the world, will have to continue solving for many years to come. That is the story of an America facing an interesting paradox. The more tourists it attracts, the greater the pressure on infrastructure and cities. In your opinion, is this just a transitional phase for the tourism industry, or will it become the new normal in the coming years? Please share your opinion in the comments section. I would really like to know, if you had the opportunity to go to the US, would you choose to immerse yourself in the vibrant atmosphere of famous cities, or seek out more peaceful destinations? If you enjoy in-depth analysis videos about the economy, society, and the ongoing changes in the United States, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next videos. The content in the video is compiled from publicly available information sources, industry reports, and reliable analyses at the time of creation. The video aims to provide information, analysis, and discussion, and is not intended to criticize any individual, organization, or locality. Some data and trends may change over time. Thank you for watching until the end. Hello, and see you in the next videos!